Hello and welcome to Fairport Public Library's Brown Bag Book Review for January 2021. I'm Abby Device, I'm the Adult Programming Librarian, and I'm so glad you're here with us today to hear about all the wonderful books that our staff has been reading recently. Now, this is a little bit different, so you can come back and watch this as much as you like. I figured it was a little bit better than Zoom so that we wouldn't have any issues with the technical part of things. So I hope you enjoy this different version of it and all of the things that are yet to come. But first, I would like to talk about my book of the month, and that is Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Katherine May. So this is a nonfiction book, and I have to say right off the bat, Katherine May is not a medical psychiatrist. She has no background in psychiatry, so this is not quite really a self-help book. It's more of a study and a meditation on the low periods of our lives where we need to kind of retreat from society and care for ourselves. So I picked up this book myself because I know myself and my family have been going through a lot of difficult times recently, even outside of the pandemic. But that all feels connected at this point, really, being separated from our loved ones and our friends and, dealing with situations that wouldn't necessarily come out unless we were isolated. So that's why I turned to this book. And I found a lot of interesting insight from Katherine May. So being that she's not a psychiatrist, she did more of a study on how people in the world, quote unquote, winter. And that's what they do in those really dark times where it's cold and isolating and, seasonal depression kicks in and all that kind of thing. And she researched what different cultures and time periods have done to deal with, grow, and heal in those times. And I found that to be extremely helpful. There is no right or wrong answer in this book. There's no, this is how you winter. And I really appreciated that because not every single person feels the darkness in the same way, right? So we all go through different trials and we all handle it different ways. And she just shows you a variety of ways that we and people in the world actually prepare for the cold months and how they find solace, rest, and reconnection in those times. So I found this to be very helpful. I will have to tell you that if you're coming into the library to check out our brown bag book review display, I was not able to get copies of this book because there are such few in the system and they're all checked out for good reason. So I suggest that when you come into the library, please go and place a hold on this book if it seems interesting to you, because I found a lot of insight and a lot of comfort and a lot of reflection in this book, and I highly recommend it. So next up, we have another librarian who is new to us. She is our new media librarian, and let's see what she has to say about her books.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bishop Vales, and today I want to share with you two fantastic fantasy novels. The first one, The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo, takes place in Malaya or Malaysia in the year 1893. As the title suggests, The Ghost Bride is based upon the ghost marriage tradition that is still very much alive in certain parts of Asia today. For those not familiar with them, ghost marriages are typically arranged between two deceased people. It is such a common tradition that there are even marriage brokers who specialize in finding a good match between the dead. More rarely, a marriage will be arranged between a deceased man and a living woman. There are many reasons behind ghost marriages that vary with each culture, but often it is to keep the spirits happy and from coming back to haunt you. So, what would you do if your father asked you one day if you would like to become a ghost bride? That is exactly what 17-year-old Leland is asked at the beginning of our story. When her father realizes that Leland is definitely not interested, he tries to make it seem like a bit of a joke. But it becomes clear soon afterwards that this marriage proposal is no joke. The Lim family, who is seeking a bride for their recently deceased son, Lim Tianqing, invites Leland to visit their mansion. Leland enjoys experiencing how these wealthier people live, but she can't shake the feeling that something is strangely off with Lim Tianqing's mother, Madame Lim. While she is there, Leland explores the mansion and meets a handsome and very much alive stranger who turns out to be none other than Tianqing's cousin, now the heir of the Lim family since Tianqing has passed away. Li Lan certainly wouldn't mind marrying this man. But then the dreams begin. When Tianqing starts haunting Li Lan in her dreams, trying to coerce her into marrying him, Li Lan's ama, or her personal maid, takes her to see a medium to try to stop the dreams. But things only get worse from there, and Li Lan soon finds herself struggling not only to keep her new love interest, but to hold on to her very life. The Ghost Bride is an engaging tale that I would recommend to anyone who likes fantasy, romance, and historical fiction. Even though it deals a lot with the dead and the afterlife, it is not dark by any means and even manages to strike a humorous tone throughout the book. It has also been made into a Netflix original series and is available for streaming right now. As you might expect, I'm going to recommend reading the book first because it looks like the show diverges quite a bit from the book. The second book that I'll be sharing with you today is Midwinterblood by Marcus Sedgwick. It won the Michael L. Prince Award for Excellence in Young Adult Literature in 2014. The first few sentences of Midwinterblood clue us in to the possibility that this may not be a very happy story. The sun does not go down. This is the first thing that Eric 7 notices about Blessed Island. There will be many other strange things that he will notice before the forgetting takes hold of him, but that will come later. The first part of the book starts in the year 2073, and Eric 7 is a journalist on his way to a mysterious island to learn more about the inhabitants' rumored immortality. We are not told exactly where this island is, just that it is very far north where the sun does not set in the summer. Upon arrival at Blessed Island, he is greeted by the lovely Merle, who he instantly feels a connection to. The ward of the island arranges accommodations for Eric and plies him with the local tea. The next morning, Eric has a feeling that there is something he's supposed to be doing, but since he can't remember, he decides to go for a walk. After a brief swim, he suddenly recalls that he was sent to the island to write an article. He gets right to work, but discovers the charger for his device is missing. And since no one on the island uses any sort of electronic devices, they don't even have cars, his writing grinds to a halt. Since he cannot continue writing, he sets out to investigate the island, hoping to find the source of the island's supposed elixir of life. Along the way, he struggles to think straight. In fact, each day that he spends on Blessed Island, his memory continues to slip farther away into a sort of fog. But he can't help thinking that maybe he's been to this island before. The second part of Midwinterblood takes us back to the year 2011 and an archaeological dig on Blessed Island. The head archaeologist meets a strange boy by the name of Eric, who watches him all day but never says a word. The boy's mother, Merle, says he's been like this ever since he was 2 years old. After weeks and weeks of the archaeologist finding nothing, Eric quietly points to a spot to dig. But what the archaeologists eventually unearth is not what it first appears to be. Midwinterblood is divided into 7 parts total, each one taking us further and further back in time to its ultimate conclusion. Or is it the beginning? Although this book is considered young adult fiction, I believe it has plenty of appeal for an adult audience. If you liked the show Lost, where you were always trying to figure out what was going on that island, then you're definitely going to like Midwinterblood. It has that same sense of mystery, suspense, and foreboding. I highly recommend it.
Thank you, Sarah. Those books sound amazing. Next up, we're going to head to the children's department and hear from Tara and her book choice for this brown bag.
Hi, I'd like to share with you my favorite book read in 2020, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I will admit that the cover of this book is what initially piqued my interest. The constellation design is simplistic but striking all the same, especially the contrast of the gold detailing against the black. It's utterly gorgeous, but this book is so much more than just a great cover. Imagine a world where no one knows who you are, where you are forgotten every time someone closes a door or goes to sleep, even if you are lying in the same bed, living like a ghost, unable to speak your own name. In 18th century France, Addie longs to experience life to its fullest. She's dismayed by her restricted position as a woman in her contemporary society. On the eve of her wedding, Addie desperately prays to the old gods after dark. But the old gods are not gentle. When Luke, a god of darkness, appears to her, Addie grabs the hope he offers. She asks for untethered freedom, for time without limit, and in return, Luke can have her soul when she no longer wants her life. Her request is granted. But her words are twisted, and she finds herself trapped in an immortal life where she can go anywhere and do anything, but no one will ever remember her. In the 20th century, Addie finds herself in New York City, where her story really begins for the first time in nearly 300 years. A boy with a face she once dreamed of will say, "I remember you." And suddenly, Addie is no longer an idea, but a memory in the eyes of someone she will come to love. When I first picked up this book, the title alone made me feel like I needed to know who this invisible girl was. Addie is a deeply sad and lonely person, but who could blame her? What with all the hardship she's endured as a result of her curse? Living nearly 3 centuries on your own would really affect a person's psyche. But Addie is a very strong, resilient person. She's an adventure seeker, which is why she agreed to the deal in the first place. She wants more than what 18th century provincial life could offer a woman, and I doubt anyone can blame her for that. She's ahead of her time, which I think really helps her to survive through the loneliness and the trials that come with the mortality she endures. She's a survivor. All in all, this was a beautiful story. V.E. Schwab's high praise is due. She's crafted a wonderful story that feels both timeless and timely. I can't sing this book's praises enough. And I thought I'd end off on a quote that really stuck with me. An aspect of this novel that shouldn't go unnoticed is the way that V.E. Schwab used Addie's position to reflect on the restrictions and limitations on women over the centuries. This particular line really reflected that in the context of Addie's story. The darkness claimed he'd given her freedom, but really, there is no such thing for a woman, not in a world where they are bound up inside their clothes and sealed inside their homes, a world where only men are given leave to roam. Thank you for listening to my review of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Thank you so much, Tara. That looks amazing. I know it's been on my list for a while. Because it's been so popular, I wasn't able to get any copies for our display, but you should still come in and place a hold on it because it sounds amazing. Next up, we are lucky to be joined by Hema, who is in South Carolina, one of our retired librarians, and she is sharing with us 3 books that she's enjoyed over the last few months.
Hi, I'm Hema Parthasarathi, a retired librarian from Fairport. I have 3 books for you today. My first one is called The Last Flight by Julie Clark. This book came out in summer, and I saw that it was well reviewed by another librarian who retired from Fairport. And fortunately, I was able to find it immediately on Hoopla. So I read the ebook version of it. This is a thriller, and I usually don't read this genre too many of these. But my life was suspended for 3 days until I finished this book, and it was a pleasure to forget about COVID and just get lost in this book. It's about 2 women, 2 flights, and 1 chance to disappear. Claire Cook is married into a political dynasty, second only to the Kennedys. Her husband is powerful, famous, and handsome. He is featured in People magazine, and he is on the verge of entering politics. But what the world doesn't know is that he is dangerous, ruthless, and very cruel to his wife Claire. Claire knows that she cannot expose her husband, and to talk about this would only bring the scrutiny to her and will not harm him at all. She is savvy and smart, and she knows that she can never leave him. So especially leave him right before his political ambitions are about to take off. In order to get out of this relationship, she figures she can only disappear. There's nothing else that will save her from this marriage, from this relationship. So she sets out to make a foolproof plan. She often attends fundraisers for the Cook Foundation and travels the length and breadth of the country. She is set to fly to Detroit for one such event, and she's planned all of this out, created a new identity, put some money away, and everything is just absolutely going perfectly according to plan. Except at the last moment, he changes her itinerary. Instead of sending her to Detroit, he sends her to Puerto Rico. So all her planning goes to waste. She doesn't know what to do. She is desperate. She goes to the airport to take the flight to Puerto Rico. While in line, she meets up with Ava, and the two recognize something in each other. They see the desperation. Ava is also trying to escape something, and she tells Claire her story. The two decide to switch identities, clothes, purses, belongings, boarding passes, and go to their respective gates. Claire is now flying out to California to Berkeley, and Ava is going to Puerto Rico as Claire Cook. When Claire reaches California, she learns that the flight to Puerto Rico has crashed. All the passengers are dead, and Claire Cook is among the list of passengers. So as far as the world is concerned, she is dead. So she thinks she is free now to lead this new life. Except that she finds Claire has not been honest with her and has a lot of secrets. She tries to live in her apartment. Every day there is a new twist and a new turn, and she is never quite free. What I've told you is really happens within the first few pages, so I've revealed nothing to you. The twists and turns continue, and you will sit at the edge of your seat until the very last page. The nice thing about this book is that there are no redundant characters. So when you read it, if you read it, pay attention to them. And you will see how this book finally resolves itself. It was a pleasure to read this, and I would read another such book again if I knew a similar title. My second book is called Together: Why Social Connection Holds the Key to Better Health, Higher Performance, and Greater Happiness by Vivek Murthy. The author of this book was the former Surgeon General. According to him, loneliness is the cause for the current crisis in mental wellness and is responsible for the upsurge in suicide, the opioid epidemic, the overuse of psych meds, the overdiagnosing of emotional and psychological struggles. The good news is that social connection is the cure for loneliness. The author addresses the importance of community and connection and offers viable, easy solutions to this what he thinks is an overlooked epidemic. This was a very easy book to read. You can patch read, which is what I did once I was done with it. The format is easy because it is anecdotal and it's full of stories. And one particular story grabbed me. It was about a baker who was very hardworking, worked long hours, and he suddenly won the lottery. A dream come true. Except that it changed his life in such unexpected ways that he longed for his old life back. He bought everything he could to maintain a private existence. and that became his downfall. Reading this book made me think about my time at the library and how people come in just looking to connect with other people. It's not always about wanting something. And it also made me realize that we can make such a difference by just smiling or saying hello. And it seemed like a timely book given the current conditions of COVID and lockdown for almost a whole year, when all we can do is wave or smile at people from a distance. Um, it brought to focus things that we have perhaps taken for granted and not considered very important, or perhaps even indulgent or frivolous, such as knitting groups, book discussion meetings, card groups, crafting centers, quilting afternoons, and such casual activities. The good news is that you need all of this just as much as you need good exercise and eating healthy. So indulge in all that makes you happy and connect with anybody and everybody you can. My third and final book is a very compelling read called The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. This was a 2020 summer release also, and I was very fortunate to get the ebook version of it. And what a read! It is about two sisters, twin sisters, one black, one white. They were not born that way. They were raised in a fictional town called Mallard, which prides in light-colored, light-skinned blacks. The novel spans nearly half a century, from 1940s to 1990s, and the novel focuses on Desiree and Stella Vines, who were raised in Mallard, Louisiana, and it's an exclusive place for light-skinned black people. The people of Mallard pride themselves on not being dark and are very judgmental of color. This book tracks their Stella and Desiree's lives across generations. Around the age of 16, they leave Mallard and go away to New Orleans. Stella applies for a job and finds that she has passed off as a white person, and she continues to live the rest of her life as a white person. Desiree, on the other hand, marries a dark-skinned man, and the author described Desiree's child as the darkest child that ever lived. The author says, in Mallard, nobody married dark. Over time, its prejudices deepened as its population became lighter and lighter, like a cup of coffee steadily diluted with cream. The twins had creamy skin, hazel eyes, and wavy hair. This didn't really save their mother from living an impoverished existence. She still cleaned the homes of rich white folks around town. But the twins had had enough, and they leave Mallard and they do not come back, until at least they're adults. They each raise a daughter. One is blue-black dark, one blonde, grows up believing fully that she's entirely white. One is smart and grounded, the other is spoiled and lost. The remarkable thing about this book is that the author is only 30 years old. This is her second book, and she's being compared to Toni Morrison and other seasoned writers. This book has been on top of the New York Times bestseller list for over half a year. The beauty of the book is definitely in the prose, in each of the characters, and how they choose to live their lives, the consequences they deal with based on the decisions they make to be black or white. It it was an effortless read. I was completely absorbed in it. And considering the somewhat heavy topics of the book, I thought it would be a heavy read, but it wasn't. I knew based on reviews it would be a good book, but it surprised me how much I enjoyed the book. It's a multi-layered story, and it's about identity and family and the secrets we keep. Apparently, this has been picked up by HBO for miniseries. I can see this book becoming a hot favorite among book discussion groups. There is so much this book had, and personally, the character that endeared me more than others was of Stella's. The struggle that Stella has in keeping her identity hidden to such great length, it just broke my heart. I hope you find the three books as enjoyable as I have, and happy reading.
Thank you so much, Hema. I read that last book she just reviewed, The Vanishing Half, and I also recommend it. You should definitely check it out if you can. Next up is our teen services librarian, Karrie, and she's got a fun little presentation for you to talk about a graphic novel that she enjoyed.
Hi everyone, my name is Karrie Dennis. I'm the Teen Services Librarian at the Fairport Public Library, and I just want to share a really great graphic novel with you. This one is called I Was Their American Dream. It's by Malaka Gharib, and it's written and illustrated by Malaka. And this is a graphic memoir. The front cover shows Malaka with her mom and dad and extended family. You can see Malaka and her American flag star eyes here, and her mom behind her and her dad next to her. And behind them is her extended family and other people in her life. So Malaka shares her story of growing up Filipina, Egyptian American in California. She's a first-generation American. Her mom is Filipina Catholic, and her dad is Egyptian Muslim. So it's an exploration of, what makes me Filipina? What makes me Egyptian? What makes me American? And we meet her amazing family. She portrays them in such a loving and humorous way. She's got her mom, her dad, her grandparents, aunts, uncles, and we see how her family doesn't look like the ones on TV and how she feels about that. And we also learn how she navigates her family, the Filipinos and the Egyptians, and differences, specifically with food, religion, and language. And it's just all done in a really humorous, witty way. And we see her spend time on her childhood, her teenage years, her college experience, and her years as a young professional, and she's still figuring out who she is all along. And while she's growing up, she spends the school year with her mom in the US, her summers with her dad in Egypt, and you get introduced to her diverse high school in Cerritos, California. All this is illustrated in such an engaging way. And then she heads to Syracuse University, which is mostly white, which is just a very jarring experience and very different from her high school experience or her years growing up. So I just really enjoyed this engaging, heartwarming memoir. I also felt like I learned a lot. It includes some really unique interactives, such as a recipe for mungo, which is a Filipino dish of stewed mung beans. It's got a bingo chart of microaggressions, which you can see here on the left, and a mini zine tutorial and Tagalog flashcards. And if you don't know what microaggressions are and you don't know what a zine is, you'll learn. Just pick up this graphic novel novel, and you'll learn all about it. It has very charming illustrations. It's got this very calming, like red, white, and blue palette, and I just really loved it, and I hope that you do too.
Thank you so much, Karlie. Now, if you haven't read a graphic novel yourself, I highly recommend you do it. I have really enjoyed all the graphic novels that I have read, and although it takes me a little minute to just kind of transfer from a regular story, I really enjoy them. Next up, we have Carl, our director, and he will be talking about one of his nonfiction titles about American history.
Hi, I'm Carl, and today's recommendation from me is Founding Brothers. If you've been following my recommendations, I like to do at least one book on American history, kind of expanding my knowledge base. I find it very fascinating, especially the foundations and the creation of our great nation. So that led me to Founding Brothers. If you've seen some of the other ones, I've done stuff on American Revolution, and with Founding Brothers, I wanted to see this period after the failed Articles of Confederation, as the United States of America created the Constitution. And this deals very much with that kind of period. The Founding Brothers from about probably just before the creation of the Constitution all the way to the death of Jefferson and Adams, who notably both died on 4th of July on the exact same day. So it was a very, very fascinating book. Excellent. Highly recommend it. As you can see on the cover, it's a winner of a Pulitzer Prize. If you haven't already read it, I do recommend it. And basically, Ellis here looks at 6 or so chapters in our nation's founding, and does a deep dive into those. If you're familiar with the Alexander Hamilton musical, you'll recognize 3 of them. There's the one on the duel, Burt Hamilton. There's one on the dinner, and he actually says there's more than one dinner involved, which was basically Madison, Jefferson, and Hamilton hammering out an agreement on the nation's capital, which was very fascinating to read the idea behind putting it where it was, or where it is, and moving it out of New York City. And his treasury deal, and his debt solution, Hamilton's debt solution. And then also you see another chapter on the farewell, George Washington's idea of I want to leave on a high note, and I want to leave this nation with the idea of this is how a leader should behave. Fantastic chapter as well. And then you get into 3 chapters, which some people may not realize. One's called The Silence. I'll get to that in a little bit. And then one was about Madison and Jefferson's very much mentorship relationship. Jefferson as a mentor, and then Madison as his follower. And very fascinating to see that, and how this kind of creates a wedge between Jefferson and Adams, and that gets into the last chapter, which I think was called The Friendship. Adams and Jefferson were friends. They were both ambassadors overseas in Europe during the Revolution. You had Jefferson in France and Adams in England. So you see this friendship that they have that is destroyed by politics. They're on either side of the political spectrum. The anti-federalists or the Democrat Republicans, and Adams, who is a Federalist. So it's fascinating, great to see. Like I said, at walking away, developed definite opinions about certain founding fathers. Jefferson was not a fan of beforehand. I can tell you this much: it did nothing to, dissuade that opinion of him. But Adams, who I know nothing about whatsoever, this really changed my opinion on him. I think it makes me want to read more about our second president. But the other chapter is called The Silence, which deals heavily with the slavery issue and why it wasn't discussed, why there was this silence around it. And that was a fascinating and sad chapter to read. And you see Franklin, who I love, Benjamin Franklin's only appearance in this book, because he's towards the end of his life, he's part of an abolitionist society. He sends a letter to Congress saying, with the society saying, slavery should be abolished. And their response is, especially from the Southern delegation, is anger. This is a topic that shouldn't be discussed at all. And like it was a faux pas. So it was fascinating to see. And the outcome is very sad of this letter and what it, ultimately what happens, where slavery is not only shouldn't be spoken, it basically can't, because there is now a resolution that we can't discuss slavery in Congress. It's up to the states. It's the ultimate. You can see this is what leads to the eventual Civil War, because there's no way to talk about it. Anytime anyone brings it up, nope, precedent. We can't talk about it. It's decided back in the 1790s. So great book. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. You'll enjoy it, and we'll see what I read next. I'm thinking, like I said, I'd like to read some more on Adams, and there's another book that I've been looking at called Adams versus Jefferson, but maybe it'll be something else. Well, if you read this book, enjoy.
Thank you so much, Carl. I don't know about you guys, but as we've been living through some serious American history, I've been feeling the need to look back as well to see if I can learn from the past. So I will be picking that up. Next up, we're going back to the children's department with our children's librarian, Lauren, and she's going to be discussing a very interesting YA novel.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and today I'm going to be talking about the young adult novel, Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. In this book, 12-year-old Sunny was born in America, but her family has recently moved back to Nigeria. Sunny's American accent is not the only thing that makes her different from her classmates. Sunny is albino, and she's also the butt of many of the children's jokes at school. She loves soccer, but can't go in the sun for long without fear of her skin burning due to her albinism. And she carries an umbrella wherever she goes. One day, while she's being bullied at school, her classmate Orlu sticks up for her and brings her to meet his friend, the confident and spunky Chi-Chi. Through her relationship with Chi-Chi, Orlu, and later a fourth friend, Sasha, we learn with Sunny that she is a free agent, one of the magical leopard people with latent magical power. Akata Witch has been called the Nigerian Harry Potter, and that's exactly how it feels. The reader learns about this new magical world right along with Sunny. Magic is conjured through the use of a juju knife. Your true self is revealed through your own unique mask called a spirit face, but you try not to show it to anyone because it's kind of like being naked. And currency that is earned through knowledge and new experiences drops on your head when you learn something new. Peppered through the book are quotes from Fast Facts for Free Agents, a text for young leopard people who are just learning about their magical prowess. Throughout the book, Sunny, Orlu, Chi-Chi, and Sasha form an Oha coven while learning about their unique magical abilities and skills and strengthen them through various challenges. But will their magic be enough to defeat the biggest threat facing their community? Black Hat, the serial killer? If you enjoy fantasy and magical stories, and if you're a fan of Harry Potter, you'll love this book. I want to add that I listened to the audiobook and the narrator was phenomenal. You can actually borrow the audiobooks for both Akata Witch and the sequel, Akata Warrior, on Hoopla. Be sure to check it out. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That one sounds right up my alley. Next up, I am so excited to tell you we have Louise Young with us. She is a retired Fairport librarian, one of the founders of Brown Bag Book Review, and she's back after 14 years, and she is here to tell us about 3 of her favorite books. So let's take a listen.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. I've been gone for 14 years, believe it or not. And I'm so excited. Abby asked me if I would do the Brown Bag Book Review, and I said, oh, be still my heart. I love doing this. So in my 14-year absence, of course, I've been reading, and I have 3 books here that I think you might like. So here we are. It's January 2021, and it's finally 2021 with a promise of a vaccine that we all can have, plus longer sunny days, which I'm thinking maybe we've already noticed, and new books, freshly published, that we can enjoy. Happier days are here again. I've chosen 3 new books by 3 of our favorite authors. All of them will leave you feeling better than when you turn the first page. So let's get to it. The first one, as you can see, is Squeeze Me by Carl Hiaasen. Now I know if you know Carl Hiaasen, you're already laughing. But if you've not met him yet, it's time you did. Carl Hiaasen is a former reporter for the Miami Herald. And he said that he gets his ideas from the news, really. He cited the instance of a Palm Beach lawyer who came home from work and was walking his dog, his lab, when a neighbor's pit bull charged the lab. So he intervened, and in the process, the pit bull attached his jaw to the lawyer's arm. So the lawyer did, as Carl Hiaasen said, what anybody in South Florida would do. He pulled his gun out of his pocket and shot the pit bull. But the pit bull's jaw never would disengage from his arm, even if the pit bull was dead, which it was. So of course, eventually the pit bull was removed from his arm. But this incident showed up in one of Carl Hiaasen's books with a really, what's the word I'm looking for here? It was removed eventually from a deranged character who went around throughout his life with a crab claw attached to his thumb. And it seems fantastic as you're reading these things to think, where did he get that idea? But he said he got it from the news. So in Squeeze Me, I go in the wrong direction here. In Squeeze Me by Carl Hiaasen, it's his new book. It was just published. It opens at Casa Bellicosa, which is just a wonderful name. It's a resort in Palm Beach at a gala charity ball to benefit IBS, which is, of course, as we know, irritable bowel syndrome. And wealthy, twice widowed Kiki Pugh goes outside into the garden to have a cigarette, and she never returns. A massive police search ensues. Could the hungry Burmese pythons infesting the area have anything to do with her disappearance? Be prepared to literally laugh out loud, even if you're sitting in an empty room, as the search unfolds. That's the Carl Hiaasen book I highly recommend. It's one of the best of his that I've read. My second book is by Dave Sedaris, whom we all know from NPR's This American Life and his stories in the New Yorker, as well as his many other books. The Best of Me, I never remember which side I'm on here. The Best of Me by Dave Sedaris is his most recent one and one of his best. His collection of stories and essays recount his favorite topics. Excuse me, his family of 4 sisters and 1 brother, his partner Hugh, his life in both France and then in England, and his worldwide travels, especially the fun he has on airplanes and in airports, which we can all relate to. An example of such musings is his account of undressing in a doctor's office in Paris. He misunderstood the nurse's directions that when he was finished in the dressing room, he should come out. So he walked out into the waiting room. No one was there, so he sat down. He was wearing only his underwear. As other fully dressed patients arrive, he fears that their seeing him virtually naked will be a highlight or a low light of their day and probably their year. So he tries to console himself by remembering some sights that he had seen that he thought were worse than what he was doing. One, he remembers seeing a dog wearing a wooden leg, and he talks about how the owner of the wooden leg dog was proud of the fact that he'd whittled this leg, and when the dog walked, it made noises on the pavement. He also remembers seeing a woman who'd been knocked down by a car lying on the pavement. When the ambulance arrived, they gave her a goblet of wine as she was lying on the pavement to revive her. Both of those incidents, he thought, would trump having seen a naked man in a waiting room wearing only his underwear. So he felt better about that. The Best of Me is one of these books that you feel as if you're a kid listening to somebody telling a story, and you just tell me more, tell me another story, don't stop. Each little anecdote is funnier and more, it resonates more honestly with our own lives than you expect. So Dave Sedaris is certainly not to be missed, and his book, The Best of Me, is his latest, published in 2020, and sure to cheer you up. Thanks. Okay, my third and final book in my Laugh trilogy is, I just think it's 2021 and we deserve to laugh. I mean, let's face it, we've had a pretty ugly 2020. So I'm closing with Fannie Flagg's most recent book, The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop. The gang from Fried Green Tomatoes are there, if only sometimes in flashbacks. If you're new to Whistle Stop, don't worry. The book stands alone. Having read Fried Green Tomatoes simply enriches the whole experience. Green Tomatoes was the precursor to this book, and so the narrator of this book continues to capture the flavor of the place as well as the characters as they live their lives. Idgie, Ruth, Stump, Dot Weems, and many of the old gang are still there. Throughout the book, actually, they're not really there. Some of them are there only in memories, but the memories are just phenomenal. So throughout the book, several issues of Dot Weems, who is the postmaster of Whistle Stop, writes a newsletter, and she publishes it periodically. I don't think it has any special, any special schedule, but it's been published since the 1930s. So we got some flashbacks that kind of help us remember the plot and the characters and all. And at one point, Dot Weems says she remembers when children could be sent through the post office, could be mailed through the post office. And all she says about that is she's glad she wasn't the postmistress during those years. In other words, it would have been kind of awkward to receive a child through the mail and have to deal with it. So she's wonderful. So here's a sample of the newsletter in Life in Whistle Stop, sample of Dot Weems' newsletter from Christmas 1990. By this time, she's moved on to Fairhope, Alabama. No, wait a minute, I'm wrong. It's Christmas 1970. So it's even more interesting. Well, folks, another year, and we're still here, alive and kicking. I am anyway. Wilbur dropped a hammer on his foot and broke his toe. So he's not doing much kicking these days. But I'm happy to report that he finally went and got some hearing aids. So I don't have to shout anymore. You try playing bingo with a deaf man. And now the news of the day, as they say. Received a darling photo of Bud, who is Stump, if you remember Stump, and he's the Wonder Boy. He actually is the Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop. Received a darling photo of Bud, Peggy, and little Ruthie. And Ruthie, if you'll remember, was co-owner of the Fried Green Tomatoes Whistle Stop Cafe. She was co-owner of the Whistle Stop Cafe with Idgie. And he is Ruthie's son, who had lost his arm in a train accident. So, received a darling photo of Bud, Peggy, and little Ruthie. I can't believe how much little Ruthie has grown since last year. This new one was taken of the three of them standing in front of her daddy's new Threadgood Animal Clinic building in Silver Spring, Maryland. And her daddy is Stump, where they are now living. I must say it's good to have them back home in the good old USA. It looks like a very nice building, and we're so happy to see the Threadgood name on it. Our Bud has done very well for himself, and we're all proud of him. And speaking of the Threadgoods, my old friend and former neighbor, Ninny Threadgood, sent me another one of her favorite Whistle Stop memories. She says she remembers Saturday mornings when Idgie used to pile all the kids in Whistle Stop into that old car of hers and drive them over to Birmingham to the movies and treat them all to popcorn and a Coke. She said nobody loved kids more than Idgie. I agree. Sad news. Grady Kilgore, who was in Birmingham over Thanksgiving, took a ride to Whistle Stop and reports that someone must have stolen the old Whistle Stop railroad crossing sign because it's not there anymore. Reverend Scroggins wrote to tell us that his son Jesse Ray just got back from service and has wrecked another car. That makes 3 so far. On a happier note, our old pal Opal Butts said she ran into Sipsy's granddaughter Alberta, who's now living in Birmingham, and says that she's attending a fancy cooking school and hopes to become a chef. Good for her. Maybe she will become the next Julia Child. Merry Christmas, gang. Your faithful scribe, Dot. P.S. We don't get out to the movies much anymore. Write and tell us some good shows to look at. Wilbur and I like Carol Burnett, Candid Camera, and What's My Line? How about you? So, treat yourself to well-deserved laughs after last year and put each of these 3 books down feeling better than when you picked them up. Have fun as you begin 2021 laughing and being more convinced than ever that the world can be and is most of the time a wonderful place. Thanks, have fun, and I look forward to seeing all of you at the next brown bag, because my husband and I are returning to Fairport after 14 years in Saratoga Springs because our son lives here, and he thought, and we thought, it would be a good idea if we moved closer to him. So we will be living here, and I will be participating, hopefully, in the next brown bag. So enjoy reading the wonderful books everyone's recommending, and have a perfectly great 2021. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Louise. We are so happy to have you back, and I can't wait to have you back again for future Brown Bag book reviews. Finally, last but not least, we have our marketing librarian, Karrie Bordeaux, and she's going to be telling you about one more nonfiction book.
Hi everyone, this is Karrie Bordeaux. I'm the marketing librarian here at Fairport Public Library, and today I am reviewing Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Dear Sugar. This is by Cheryl Strayed. It's a work of nonfiction. You might know the author of the memoir Wild, where she hikes the Pacific Crest Trail. This is a collection of her time spent at Rumpus. It was like an online magazine, I think. But she was an advice columnist, and people would write in and she would write back as Dear Sugar. So people didn't know it was Cheryl Strayed. So reading these, I find that a lot of these columns that people write in on is actually quite engaging. Even though I might not have experience in some of the topics that people are writing in on, I do find that in each one, there's something that I can take away. And it's also a really great read when you just kind of want to put something down and pick something up. You don't want to be fully engaged. You know, they're short little columns, a few pages long. And the cool thing about these is that Cheryl Strayed, she'll take what the person is asking for advice on, whether it be, you know, death or romance or cheating or finances or having a baby, like all of these major life decisions that people just get stuck on and they don't know what to do or who to turn to. So Cheryl Strayed ends up taking, you know, what these people are looking for and turning it into her own life experiences to say, this is, you know, something that I can give you and what I went through, and often leaving these remarkable quotes and really powerful things to walk away from. Yes, there are moments of where it is funny, but it's really just a beautifully amazing piece that she put together for all of these advice columns as Dear Sugar. And the cool thing is back in May, during the pandemic, she put together a podcast called Sugar Calling, where she called one author. In each episode, there's like maybe 5 or 6 episodes. One episode is with George Saunders, who was her MFA professor at Syracuse University, and they have a really engaging conversation. Another is Margaret Atwood, who I admire, and that conversation is it's just funny and just brilliant. So I would recommend that as like a sister if you're into podcasts, to listen to that. Again, it's only about 5 or 6 episodes, but this book is just it's so great to read all this advice. Even if it's something I don't have the experience with, I do end up finding that there's so much to take away. So anyway, this is Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. Highly, highly recommend if you want something, just here and there, pick it up, read it when you can. I've been working on it for a few weeks and I've enjoyed it so much. It's just beautiful. Anyway, all right, take care.
Thank you, Karrie, and thank you to all of our presenters today. I couldn't do Brown Bag Book Review without you, and you've really made it interesting for this one. I also want to thank you, the watcher and the listeners. Please feel free to share this link with others if you think they'd find it interesting. And I encourage you to come into the library with your mask to check out some of these books and place some of the other ones on hold. I will see you next time, and I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.